Good evening and welcome again to our Wednesday edition with Supreme Counseling for Personal Development, our life skill program where I am helping you and we are going through the topic of conflict resolution. My name is Shade Watson and I am enjoying this process and I hope you are. I hope you are learning some things. I hope you are practicing what we're doing and let's have some fun. So again, the topic that we'll be covering every Wednesday is conflict resolution and problem solving. I want you to remember some things before we go. So on to the next slide, which we talk about what I want you to remember. The key terms to remember are conflict, conflict resolution, problem solving, and I want you to remember conflict. And I want you to remember, perception. So let's start first. Conflict. Conflict is a serious disagreement or an argument. Remember, the words instead of conflict is clash, opposing views, a feud, contrast. For those of you who are doing CXCs, for your argumentative essay, contrast, compare and contrast, and a quarrel, which is a word we often use. Conflict resolution is a process of working through these opposing views, these clashes, these feuds, these quarrels in order to reach an agreeable term. Just remember those. That is conflict, that's conflict resolution. A problem, remember we said a problem is a thing that is difficult to achieve. And mainly this is you, the individual. This is a problem you are having that goes way beyond the clash, way beyond the quarrel. So the quarrel, the conflict is you, some person, and other people. But the problem is really all about you, the individual. And then we said that problem solving is the process of finding solutions to difficult issues. And then remember, for everything within the conflict resolution and the problem solving is about perception. How we see, how we hear, how we taste, how we smell, how we feel things. Your experiences has an impact and influence. It guides however you receive whatever information that comes to you. Remember that. Whenever there's an argument, there's a problem, your perception is something that is important to remember. So let's recap for those of you who were not here last week and week in front. And for those of you who forgot what we talked about. Last week, we did the after effect, the cooling off period. We talked about their pros and cons to the after effect, where we look at a con could be it affects your mental health. You can get depressed. You can get anxious. We thought that a pro could be it makes relationships better because you're communicating how you feel about a clash. You're communicating how this clash, this opposing view arises problems that you may not have even been thinking about before. We said that another con, another consequence, another negative thing to the problem solving or the conflict will be violence. We talked about how if you don't manage your emotions properly, how you can be very angry due to disappointment. Remember, we talked about this whole wheel, this circle, this tangle wheel of emotions when we said there's so many things you can feel that can cause you to react however you're reacting during the conflict. And one of those reactions, one of those after effects can be violence. And then we said another good thing to it is improving communication. Then we talked about the cooling off period when we said we're going to acknowledge your emotions as heavy, as painful, as difficult as they feel, because we like to ignore them. We acknowledge them and it's okay. Remember, it is okay for you to feel however you are feeling. And we spoke about different ways that we can cool off, where we call them coping, where we said we are going to do some deep breathing, we do some journaling, we listen to some music, exercise. We spoke about different things. So welcome again. For those of you who are new to our program, welcome, and I hope you learn so much. For those of you who are always here, thanks for joining in. Remember to have your pen, your pencil, your paper. Use your Google Documents, your Microsoft Word, because we are taking notes so that we can apply, which is use these techniques, these informations that we are covering to your everyday life. So let's move on. Remember, every week I will give you the overview of what we will be discussing and what we discussed throughout these 8 weeks. So first week we defined the problem, we defined what problem was, we defined what conflict was, conflict resolution and problem solving. Last week we talked about the after effect and the cooling off period. Today, which is week 3, we are looking at ways to manage conflict. Week 4, next week, we are doing communication during a conflict. Week 5, facts, feelings, and opinions. Week 6, taking responsibility, which is a hard one for some people. Week 7, mediation, where we said this is a third person involved. And week 8, identification, problem, and solution finding. Just remember those. We will be covering this overview every week so we can look back and go forward. Today, for those of you who are joining, I want you to think first. Remember to think. This is a little question here for you to consider. It's always an icebreaker, and you're always reflecting on yourself. I want you to pick a character and say 2 things you like about the person that is similar to you. The character could be some person in a book, it could be a movie, a cartoon, it could be a player on a game, it could be some person that is actually real that you look up to, a role model. And these 2 things that you like about this character that reminds you of you. So think about it. Remember, write it down. I'll go and give you an example. For me, this is something that I tell my students and I tell every person. I use Ariel from The Little Mermaid as my example. She was always my favorite cartoon. For those of you who know me know that is my favorite cartoon. And I like her because she's adventurous and I am adventurous. And everything about the sea. And I love the sea. I love the sea. May not be able to swim as good as a mermaid, but I love the sea. Another thing is that she loves to sing, and I am a big music fan. I can't sing, but I love music. So I'm going to throw this out to you. Think it through. A character, something, because sometimes this thing that we look up to is something that we want to achieve in life. We may not have these, let's say, characteristics or these ways that the character or the role model has, and that's something that we would like to have, or we have it, and therefore that's why we kind of enjoy the movie or the game or the book, whatever it is. You think it through. I give you a moment, and we'll move on from there. This week, we will really be reflecting. That is all this is. So just like last week, we talked about journaling as a coping technique. I want you to reflect on what you are about to learn, because you have to analyze and look at yourself and really see like, do I do this? Does a person that lives with me does this? Does my friend do this? Does my teacher? Every person on the bus, whoever it is, so that you can really become aware of your actions and how other people's actions trigger or impact on how you feel and you deal with things. Yesterday, Lydia spoke a lot about triggers with anger management. This is kind of similar. So again, we're being aware. So remember, our topic for today is ways to manage conflict. Ways to manage conflict. So before we go into really and truly what these ways are, I want you to remember this. 3 things to do before anything happens. Pause, listen, and observe. Pause. This is so hard for people to do, because when some person does something or something happens that triggers you into disappointment, anger, sadness, you feel hurt, all of those intense emotions that we talked about last week, you tend to have an instant reaction, reflex right there, and you fly off the handle, you cry, you shout, you quarrel, you hit some person. That's what you do, which is fine initially, but we're reflecting now. Therefore, as we reflect, we look at what we do and we try to change it because we want to improve how we deal and handle with things. So pause is number one. You are pausing. You give yourself a minute. So this is pausing. That is a pause. Pause. Listen. Now, this is something that, we think because we are hearing something, we hear what some person is saying, that we are listening. Nope. You are just hearing. Those are two things. You are hearing. Listening means that you are taking your own viewpoint, your perception, your biases, the way you see things out of the window. You are not considering anything to do with you. You are taking in how the person is seeing the situation, how their perception is making whatever the situation is a way that they are affected or they are not affected. Because sometimes we do things or some person do something to us and we was like, oh, this person could not understand how I feel. How this person could not understand that this is going to bother me, or why this is not bothering the person, because we don't understand their perception. And if we want people to understand us, it is important to understand others. So we listen without bias. And this is something that we will be talking about next week when we talk about communication, because listening there's a big key in making sure that whatever goes next is moved as smoothly as possible. And then we observe. So observe again is you're not talking, you're not putting your viewpoint in it. You are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling everything as it is in that moment. You are not seeing it and say, well, in the past, this is what that means. Or I seeing this and this is what it could possibly be. Nope, you seeing it. So if you see a cow, it is a cow. You are not saying anything related to this cow based off of past experiences. From the time you do that, your bias is going into it. And that's not what we want. So remember, we pause, we listen, we observe. This is all we're doing. We are not responding as yet. We are reflecting on how we manage conflict. So my technique on a way that we can manage conflict is by using the Killman model. Ralph Killman and Kenneth Thomas, they believe that we all use these five ways in managing conflict, or these 5 methods. And really and truly, sometimes we stay longer in one way or one method because that's our preference. It's fine because we all do it. However, depending on the situation now is when you have to tell yourself, well, I can't do this, or maybe I should try this instead. But we'll get there because we're reflecting. Remember, we just reflecting. If you feel guilty about something, that is fine. We don't feel guilty. That is fine. I just want you to apply or use as I go through this, how this affects you, what do you do, how some person does it, and how it bothers you, because that's also important. It's not just how you use these methods, it is whoever you are in opposing views with, how they use these methods, and how these methods impact you. So they are saying that there are 2 areas to consider when there is a conflict: assertiveness and cooperativeness. So they're saying that assertiveness, we focus on, I need to be satisfied, my needs, my viewpoint, how I see this, how I feel. Cooperativeness now, on the other hand, is you are considering the other person or the persons or the people that you are having the clash with, their needs, their desires, how they feel, how they're seeing it. So remember, we use and apply these depending on situations and the person or the people we are in conflict with. So it's not to say that you are always thinking about yourself or that you are always thinking about other people. We kind of use them. 1 minute I think about me, next minute I think about some person else. And that is fine. What it is now is as we go through these and we learn these ways, how can I use this to benefit the better of the situation? So the first model is competing. So competing is really a win-lose situation where, see this shark here is like a bully, is my way or is no way at all. You ever feel that? You ever had that situation where, nah, though, I need to get this here. No, this situation needs to be dealt with the way I want it to be dealt with. It is all about how I feel. I'm tired about thinking about other people. I'm tired about people hurting me. I'm tired about people not understanding me. I dealing with it the way I feel like dealing with it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever seen some person doing that? Does your parents do it? The teacher do it? The bus man do it? Your friends do it? Cousins, aunties, whoever. This is something that we do. It's a competing where I trying to make sure that I win and you lose. I trying to make sure that I outbeat you. I am the person to always, or the person to be getting ahead of this. So in the competing model, or the competing method, I should say, there is a high assertiveness where I get what I want and a low cooperativeness where you're not considering the other person's feeling. So the goal of this is to win no matter the cost. So sometimes the cost could be I am no longer your friend. I blocking you from off of WhatsApp and off of Instagram and off of Facebook and off of TikTok and off of everything that social media allows where I could block you because I am about this cut ties. Mostly we use this when we need our way and we do not care what the other person thinks or feel at that moment. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's just in that moment, based off the emotions you're feeling and your perception, your experiences, you decide I'm doing this. It's my way, no one else's. There are some people though who use this here, so like majority of the time, it is always their way. Some people, for those parents who are watching, some people feel that that's how their boss, their supervisor, their manager, or some of their colleagues are. For you children, you might be saying that's how somebody in the classroom is. That's how the teacher, there's a particular teacher who's like this, the shark. And as you can see here on the right, where the tug of war, as a competition, when you're playing a tug of war, you're trying to beat the other team, and it's a yes feeling that you experience. That is how this is. So reflect, write it down. How often do I use the competing method? Who in my house uses this method? How does this method make me feel when I use it on some person and when it is used on me? Because that also triggers us. Think about it, and then we will move on. Next is the accommodating. So just like this teddy bear, the quickest thing some people will say is, I'm sorry. You may not be sorry. It's just a reflex to say I'm sorry because it's like whatever you have to say is whatever it is. So you are low on assertiveness, low on what you want, low on your desire. And this is high on cooperativeness, high on how the person feels, high on how what the person wants. The objective or the goal, same word, is to get peace. You want peace. I am not arguing. I don't want to hear no racket in my voice. It don't matter right now because I might say something and it still is not going to benefit. It's still, the person is still not going to believe me or hear me. I just want peace. So you say, okay, I'm sorry. Whatever it is you say. Sometimes you may not say those words, but you may use words similar to those. And the aim of it for you is that you just want to keep the relationship. So this could be with your parents. It could be with a friend. It could be with a teacher, about teacher carrying you to the principal office and they still ain't getting hear what you say. So therefore, I'm wrong. Have you ever done that? Do you know some person that does that? How often do you see this tool or this method being used. How do you feel when some person does it to you? How do you feel doing it to other people? Write it down. Remember, we're reflecting. Our next one is avoiding. A lot of people uses this method daily. You avoid, just like the turtle, when it comes and it sees danger, it goes into its shell. You avoid. Conflict? What's conflict? Me? I got a problem with you? Nah, nothing is wrong. There's nothing wrong. You are denying anything, any issues, any problems you have, any clashes you see in, you don't got no opposing views. So therefore, that means that assertiveness is low. You ain't getting nothing that you want. But because you avoiding the situation, the other person is not getting what they want either. Because sometimes some people want to talk. You walking out to the room, you have nothing to say. You want shut down. So therefore, nothing is being dealt with. Do you know that? Do you know some person who does that? Do you do that? How do you like when some person does that to you? The goal for some people is that they want safety. Because if I respond, I might get violent. I might hit. I might snap. Violence might come to me. I might get slapped in my face. I might get hit with a shoe or something like that. So in order to avoid any disruption, you try to get safety going on, which is similar to you getting peace. You just do nothing. This, however, is best used when it doesn't matter what happens. It will be a problem, or I'm tired and it is best for me not to say anything. So for some children, it's like no matter what I tell my mother or my dad or my auntie or my grandmother or whoever, it is not going to solve the problem. They're not going to believe me. I could just shut up. My parent always talking, and I want to get in my word. And if I say something I rude, I disrespectful, how dare you talk back? So I just shut up. But we all know that sometimes, or majority of the times, when you shut up, you avoid, it makes the situation worse. Because what happens, that person that's receiving the avoidance, the shutdown, the denial of the situation, they sometimes or most of the times get angry and frustrated because it's like you playing with my mind or you ignoring me. So this avoidance sometimes is good because you want to cool off. It may be best not to respond at this moment to avoid conflict or violence from you. Also is something that impacts the other person and makes the other person angry or sad. You know, sometimes they would tell themselves, but this body really don't care anything about what I have to say because they just gone out through the door. They just put their headphones on and play music. They just shut the bedroom door on me. Like my say is not important. So yes, avoiding is good to use if you want to cool down for the moment for safety, or you want the person cool down for safety, but we don't stop at avoiding. We have to go back and deal with the problem or the situation so that you can have some level of assertiveness, and so does the other person or the people involved. So again, do you do this? How often do you do this? Do you know some person who lives with you that do this? Do you know some person who interacts with you often that does this? Can you study some person in the classroom that does this? Parents that are watching, can you study some person at work that does this? Do you like it when it is done, whether it is done to you, you are doing it, or you are seeing some person doing it? Think about it as we reflect. Focus more on you though, not other people. So you're not supposed to tell yourself, then you always doing this, then this is exactly what he's be telling you. You can say that, but then remember we're reflecting on ourselves. So go back to, do I do this and how often? I'm giving you some time to think. The next one is collaborating. This is where I win and you win. It's a win-win solution. So for some people, just as cool as the owl, It's a team building and a teamwork solution here, method, where I prefer this. However, what do you prefer? So I'm going to tell you what I prefer. We want to solve a problem, or this is a problem going on here. We realize that we butting heads, we are not moving. I angry, you angry, or I angry and you sad, or I can't get in my say because this person just talking off the head. You say your preference. And you are also showing the person you are interested in what they have to say. So you are asking them, what do you prefer? With this method, after hearing both preferences, you could then decide, okay, we can do this, we can do that. A new idea could come up. Do you do this? How often do you collaborate? Because again, high assertiveness, I get in what I want. High cooperativeness, you getting what you want. We both winning. This is hard though. This is a hard method here. This is used when the topic or the situation is important to both people, and when there is time to actually talk and come to an agreement. So this is something where if you avoided in the beginning because you wanted safety, you can then come back at this when both of you are calm and there is time to sit down and talk about preferences so you can make a decision. Do you know some person who does this? Do you know some person who does this as soon as there's a clash, as soon as there's an opposing view, as soon as the argument is about to start? Do you know any person who does this? How often do you do this? How often do others around you do this? Have you ever seen it happening? Write it down. Post it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Let us know, let the world know, let people see that it's not just you who've never seen this method done, or it is you that have seen this. It's not just you that sees it happening. Because, it's good for us to see who else is experiencing what we are experiencing, because we're not out there feeling how we feel alone. So write it down, let us know, and see how you could use these tools till next week. The next one is compromising. So compromising is, I give you this if you give me that. So I will agree with you if you give me something that I want. That's why people call it with defaults. It's kind of slight, but it still kind of works. It's a give and take method where I kind of get what I want. So assertiveness is like in between. That's why I have medium there. And cooperativeness is in between as well. That's why there's medium. So the goal is that we try that neither of us lose. I don't want to lose and I don't want you to lose. And we do this because we want to keep the relationship and we also want our way. So it is a good method. I'm not sure how often it works or if it is possible. I think depending on the person you are in conflict with, you will know for sure if that body is willing to get this done. Compromising is hard because it means that for some level, you have to sacrifice something that you probably did not want to sacrifice. So we don't stay here. This may just be something to start off with before you get to, okay, let's really work through the matter. This may be in between from avoiding and collaborating. So do you do this? Do you know some person who does this? How often have you used this or have you seen this used? Do you like it? Do you like when it's done to you? Do you like doing it? Think it through. And I want you to do some reflecting now, some more reflecting. So reflecting time. I have some questions here for you, which is on our next slide. And as you think through everything we discussed, I want you to apply this situation to these questions. So remember, are you competing? Are you accommodating? Are you avoiding? Are you collaborating? Are you compromising? Question 1, and you can write these down, jot them in the comment section, write them down for yourself, as you journal and you reflect through the entire week until we meet next week. Question 1. When last did you use any of these methods in the past? Did you use any this morning, this afternoon, right before this year started, yesterday? When last? Now knowing that there are different techniques, what can you do differently? So let's say you are usually a compromising person and you realize, okay, I could collaborate, I could avoid for a minute. Are you going to use any of these other techniques? How can you deal with the situation differently, even if you compromise? Have you noticed how you feel? Have you noticed your perception? Question 3. What will you do next time? So as soon as it's about to finish, there's an issue going on. Somebody telling you something that you don't like. You get upset. You feel sad. You feel anxious. How are you going to deal or manage that conflict? Are you going to, let me try this thing that Shadi talked about. I can try competing. I want it my way. Why do I want it my way? Why do I not want to consider the other person's way? Am I going to accommodate? Am I going to just say, whatever, because I am not going to get anywhere with this? Am I going to avoid, walk away, shut down, have nothing to say? Am I going to collaborate, or am I going to compromise? And the last question, question 4, when and how will you use these styles in the future? How is a good question. Like, how are you, an avoider, going to learn to collaborate? Because you got some confidence there to say, well, you know what, okay, mom, let me come to a win-win situation here. Okay, mommy, I realize that you're arguing and I want us to get somewhere here. How are you going to do it? Especially if the person is not allowing you to talk, or the person makes you feel as if your views, your perspective is not important. How do you plan on using these in the future? So think it through. These are not a reflective or just a reflex answer. You really need to think, look at how you really manage things, how you feel, which is what we talked about last week, how you see something. Is it that I am hearing it, that the person seems to be bothered and annoyed, therefore I feel like it's best for me to just don't say anything? And really, initially, the person might not be bothered or annoyed. They just want to talk. That impacts on how we use any of these styles. So I want you to reflect. This is reflection week. Reflect on your perception and how you see things. Remember, you are supposed to pause. You are to listen without bias. You're to observe without bias. So when you observe, you're looking at facial expressions, body language. The person fist up like this. The person face like this, like I'm annoyed and frustrated. You listening to the tone of voice, the certain words that are being used, what they mean, not what they mean to you, what the word means, how this person mean these words. Because I could use a word and it can mean something completely different for me than it means for you. So remember, perception is important. What have I done to make this person feel offended, to make this person feel sad, to make this person feel disappointed? Even though for me, I don't think I did anything wrong. It's not just about me considering some person else. Or are we? Are we like the shark and we competing and just thinking about ourselves? Choose when, choose how, choose where. Make a mistake and say, you know what, nah, next time I will try the different methods. If you only use one, try all of them. Try all 5 on different people so you know when is the best time to use these methods. And tell me about it. What worked and what didn't. So these are 5 tools to add to your toolbox. Remember, your toolbox is something that you keeping on you for everything. This is just like a toolbox at home is used. You got a wrench, you got everything, you got the hammer, you have the nails, you have these things available for if something happened at home. These techniques that you are learning in the life skill program are for you to have on you. Just like I have my glasses, because if they're not on, I can't see. Just like we have clothes, just like if you have your jewelry, they're necessities for you. And then want to keep practicing them. Practice is important. As Lydia said yesterday, practice is key. The more you practice it, the easier it is for you to do it when you are in the situation. Because the brain, very funny thing up here, it registers it only after it happens over and over and over. So if you learn these now and don't practice them, in the moment there is an opposing view, there's a quarrel, there's a clash, there's a contrast, you have a problem, you can pause, you can think, you can look at the other person and observe. You can't listen because you haven't practiced it. So we're practicing. Reflect and practice. And we'll come back next week as we talk about communication and continue these techniques that we use today. Have a wonderful week, and I hope you enjoyed and learned as much as you could today. See you next week. Bye.